My name is Aubrey Hicks, and I manage the Bedrosian Center here at the Price School. Before we begin, I just want to recognize that 2020 has been kind of a difficult year. We've lost several icons over the last few months. The West is literally on fire. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. We're also in the middle of a really tense conversation about what public safety is and should be. We're in the middle of a really bad polarized political system. And in the middle of all of this upheaval, this uncertainty, refugee families are still resettling across the country. So we think that there are a lot of things for people to learn and understand about refugees, about resettlement. So it's a distinct pleasure to have you all with us for this conversation today. To that end, I want to thank you for taking your time in the middle of all this uncertainty to think about this important issue. All of the people involved, all the refugees, all of the nonprofits, everyone who's working towards a better future. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Bedrosian Center, we're a center on governance. And the way I think about governance is that when you think about public policy, there's really three aspects to consider. The first is designing policy and figuring out what you want to do. The second part is figuring out how you do it. That's the implementation side. But I think in and around all of those things is the third part, the why. So in thinking about why Bedrosian Center, we focus on why and how citizens and neighbors participate in democratic governance, and why our neighbors should be an important consideration when we think about policy. So the what, the how, the why, they're all relevant for just about every policy issue facing localities and the nation today. To get at these questions behind the policy, we actively seek out partners to provide public conversations that I see as food for thought. So I want people to ask, how do you want to be as a neighbor or as a citizen? So today we've got Miry and Ahmed from Miry's list. We've got Josh from USC Annenberg. So I want to thank you for all joining this interdisciplinary conversation. And I also, before we really begin, thank our program manager, Ann Johnson, for her vision and planning to make this happen today. And I promise this is going to be the last thing I say for a while. I want to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Ehsan Zaffar. He is going to be your moderator. Ehsan is a civil rights attorney, and he works for and teaches Homeland Security at several universities across the country. And today he's coming to us from Washington, D.C. He's interested in practical ways to dissolve inequality. And as such, he's been the Bedrosian Center's fellow on inequality for the last year. Unfortunately, he's going to be moving on from USC, though hopefully still collaborating with us and teaching our students. He's going to be starting a new interdisciplinary center to fight inequality at ASU. So congratulations, Ehsan. I'm looking forward to what you do. So thank you, Ehsan, for moderating and hosting our conversation. The table is yours.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to moderate this really important discussion. I'm looking at the attendee list here. See some familiar names, a couple of professors from USC, I think a student or two, and a couple of friends from LinkedIn as well. I put this up on LinkedIn, so thank you to those who are joining in as attendees to listen in. The impetus behind this comes from Anne and Aubrey in particular, and the idea was that, how has the pandemic affected the situation, the lives, and the trials and tribulations of those who are refugees or those who are seeking asylum, particularly in the United States. And a lot of us have been struggling with unemployment. Some of us have been struggling with maybe smaller issues like childcare, maybe mental health during the pandemic. But these issues are magnified for those who are seeking refuge, who may not have a home to return to. And so that's the topic that we're going to discuss today. We'll be talking with a brilliant set of panelists, which I will have the honor of introducing shortly. Just a little bit, Aubrey made a very kind introduction about myself, but from a personal perspective, I myself am a refugee. I came to the United States in the early 90s, fleeing the Persian Gulf War. There's always a Persian Gulf War, but this was the one in the early 90s, and so things were pretty bad in terms of being a refugee then, going from camp to camp. But I can't imagine how tough they are today, given the fact that we're dealing with some of the issues that Aubrey outlined, in particular the pandemic. So I'll be trying to weave some of that in our conversation today. So this is the way we're going to try to make it work. I'll make an introduction of our panelists. I'll ask them some broad, open-ended questions, which we'll try to narrow down over time. And then we'll open it up to the attendees to ask some questions. I'd like to leave at least half the time, if not longer, for attendee questions. And so we'll try to make it work that way. So I'd like to introduce Miry Whitehill. She started Miry's List, an organization that provides a mechanism for people who directly want to help new arrival refugees. She started this from a Facebook post or group, from what I understand. I was looking into your story, Miry. And now it's a growing NGO. And I think you have Jenna Fisher on your board of directors. Is that correct?
Yes, Jenna is on our board alongside 7 other really heroic,
awesome,
talented folks.
That's great. Yeah, Jenna Fisher's, if you don't know, she played Pam on The Office. Everybody's been watching The Office on Netflix during the pandemic, but I thought I'd point that out. And then joining her is her colleague, Ahmed Abedy. He's also from Miry's List. He's a Fulbright scholar. He has a day job as an engineer. That's not enough work for somebody to do. He's also field correspondent for Miry's List, and his broader work for the community focuses on community development, strategic planning, and capacity building. So thanks for being here, Ahmed. And then lastly, we have Dr. Kuhn, who is a professor and chair in cross-cultural communications at the Annenberg School here at USC. I think he's worked with just about every major museum in Los Angeles County. And he was a MacArthur Fellow in 2016. So Josh, thank you for joining us today as well.
Great to be here. Thanks.
So I guess what I'll do is I'll ask a very broad question, Miry, and we'll start with you. It's a simple and kind of broad question. Then maybe we can move on to Josh and then Ahmed after that. But how has the refugee crisis, do you think, kind of affected, how has the pandemic rather affected the lives of refugees, particularly those that are seeking refuge in the United States or seeking asylum in the United States?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a very important question. The reality is that this pandemic has made life more difficult for every vulnerable community, including the resettling refugee families that we serve. And so that the last 6 months, their needs have elevated. And so we are doing our best to mobilize to help them. And then the other thing I'll say is just on the other side, for just, focusing on general American people, I think that we're at a really interesting point in time because this pandemic has given now every single person in America a little taste of what it might feel like to be afraid of what's on the other side of the door. And that is something that everybody who is facing resettlement as a refugee has had to deal with already. And so suddenly we're at a point where we can relate to each other just a little bit more. And we're here for it.
Awesome. Josh, how about your input on that question?
I would echo everything that Miry just said, particularly the really important point about, we're all in the same boat with the pandemic, as people have been saying, of course. And yet we're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same sea, perhaps, in very different sized boats with different levels of vulnerabilities. And so as we've seen in all aspects, the pandemic has preyed upon those vulnerabilities in disproportionate ways, but ways that echo and magnify the inequalities that existed before the pandemic, and magnify the injustices that existed before the pandemic, and in fact, intensify those injustices. And I was actually thinking just a few days ago, I was quite struck when, so many of us in Southern California, throughout the West Coast, are looking, are grappling with the kind of never-ending and intensifying wildfires here on the West Coast. At the same time that the Miry refugee camp, housing roughly 12,000 refugees, was on fire, set on fire purposely to battle global political responses and national responses to how the pandemic is being treated within refugee camps. And I think it's really important, while we are here to talk specifically about resettlement issues within the US and the specificities of that, which is of course our focus, but that focus can't also, it shouldn't allow us to take our eyes off of these global connections between these burning fires, right? Between the same, these are the same fires, I would argue. And the displacements that they threaten are displacements that are a condition of the contemporary world. One that requires responses, compassionate responses, strategic responses from every level of society.
And Ahmed, I'll pose the same question to you. And then Josh, I got a follow-up for you right after Ahmed.
Yeah, the pandemic, let me focus on the another perspective here, that refugees and immigrants, they already have had a lot of pain and suffer. They escaped the torture, they escaped the persecution, they escaped just to being a saver for their lives. And especially for the new arrival, I have met several families. When they arrived and the pandemic hit, it was kind of that synchronization. Some were really frustrated to attribute what is happening to their bad luck, which kind of also pour some huge frustration on what's going on. They were really hoping that they're finally take a break and breathe, and they can look to the future. However, when the virus hits and there's an uncertainty, a huge amount of uncertainty, in addition to the huge amount of uncertainty, that's really affecting and impacting everything, including their resettlement process.
Thank you for that. And I also have a follow-up for you. This is all I'm going to do all day today is follow up left and right. But Josh, you talked a little bit about how, and I think that's an important point, about even though we're talking about refugees vis-a-vis the U.S. borders, but refugees and those that seek asylum, we don't live in a silo, right? This is a global system, right? So refugees come from somewhere, for instance. There's been a lot of conversation, even before the pandemic, a lot of rhetoric, against refugees and those seeking asylum, resettlement, or apathy, even with people that may ostensibly support, resettlement. There's some level of apathy in the public policy sphere. Do you think that the pandemic is an opportunity to reframe that debate, the debate around the fact that this is a global phenomenon, even though we're living in a time that is looking inwards, where a lot of public policy folks are looking inwards, when it comes to U.S. public policy making?
Boy, I wish it was. I'm not feeling particularly optimistic this week, this day, this week, this month, this year. So I'm not so optimistic about that, especially when we consider that if we're just talking about populations of people who have been formally designated as refugees, which would of course be different from those seeking asylum, right? So while they're similar in the structural issues that motivate people to move, or that have caused their displacement. These categories are very specific in terms of the government and mean very different things. That said, if we also look at detention centers in the United States, right? Over 200 detention centers in the US with COVID outbreaks at some of the biggest detention centers throughout the United States that are just being, the populations are being left to get sick and left to die. And this is something that I think that there is you use the word apathy, and I think it's a word to really underline because there is a kind of global apathy that is almost become a kind of pathology in my mind, that's become accepted. And, just the other day, I'm sure people caught it during President Trump's campaign speech, I guess we would call it, more like a dictatorial stand-up routine in Minnesota the other day, when he dropped a new joke in his repertoire. I don't know if you caught it. It was a new refugee joke where he said, one of the most vital issues in this election is the subject of refugees. You know it better than anyone, winking, nodding. I'm not going to do a Trump impression. And then he said, lots of luck. Are you having a good time with your refugees? And the fact that at this moment of such vulnerability, of such precarity, and of such mass death and mass displacement and mass grief, that the President of the United States is not only through policy enacting unprecedented levels of xenophobia and racism against refugee populations, but is then turning that into literally a joke and laughing, with thousands laughing with him, at people who have been displaced from their homes, who are trying to survive. And that laughter in the face of that grief and that suffering, that kind of callousness, is something that is, we've gone down a very dark, deep rabbit hole, and I don't know how we get out of it at this point. But it's something that should trouble all of us, as I know it does, in great ways.
So Josh does not have an optimistic view, to say the least, about whether this broader conversation about refugees can be opened up. But Miry, that kind of, I wouldn't say contradicts, but it's a little different from your initial remarks, right? Where you talked about, and Josh, by the way, I'm in agreement, obviously, with what you're saying. But Miry, you talked about this idea of like, look, we have a shared experience now, right? And so maybe that will lead, or maybe in your opinion, it does lead to a greater level of empathy and a reduced level of apathy when it comes to refugees. I pose the same question to you. Do you feel like that is the case, or are you kind of more in Josh's camp where you see kind of the trend going the other way?
Well, first of all, anybody that knows me knows that I'm just going to be an optimist no matter what. So, but I am not a blind optimist. I let my optimism be led by data, and I look inward because the work that we do at Miry's List, we are busier than ever. I have my hands full. I'm also home with 2 kids most of the time. So I look to the data, and here's what the data says about how American people feel about the plight of refugees who are resettling in this country. As of about a month ago, we exceeded the total number of gifts sent door to door from American person to resettling family. We have exceeded by 2x what we saw for all of last year. So when we really started looking at those numbers, that was a major one to answer the big question. Do American people still care about refugees in the face of COVID-19? And folks who use our website to send housewarming gifts to resettling refugees, they are not doing that as a tax-deductible donation to Miry's List. They are doing it truly as one gift from stranger to stranger. And so it's a very unique kind of way to take the temperature on how people are feeling about the opportunity to help. And so that's 2x. Also, when you look at the number of people who have donated directly to Miry's List, so any cash donation from anywhere from like $10 to a $10,000 grant, So far, we have seen about 90% growth of the number of individual donors that we saw last year. So that's another metric that we look to. And we're expecting that the folks who are donating to Miry's list this year to do that again next year at whatever level they're able to. So we might not be in a situation where everybody's able to increase the size of their donation, but we're at a point where people definitely want to get involved, and Miry's list is one opportunity to do so directly in service to these families who have come here. And a lot of people ask me, are refugees coming during COVID-19? The answer is absolutely yes. We have enrolled over 150 families so far in 2020, and the vast majority of them have come since COVID hit in March.
So those are some heartening and interesting statistics. Before we move on to the next topic, Josh, does that make you think a little bit differently in terms of the delineation between the public policy landscape and kind of what's happening on the ground with people, like people's hearts are opening up, I guess?
Yeah, I want to make sure that what I said before is taken in the right context, which is to say that I like Miry, am a hardcore optimist. All of my work is based upon the hope of opposition and resistance and transformation. And I think it's important to note that while I really do believe that we're in an unprecedented moment of top-down, of going backwards, deeply backwards in refugee policy, but also in larger humanitarian policy and just humanitarianism writ large in terms of person-to-person care. I think we are seeing, as one would expect and hope, also unprecedented levels of mobilization and organization and resistance, just as we're seeing in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, in terms of so many other moments of reckoning where, the more top-down oppression and restriction and persecution that we see, we have more bottom-up efforts. And I also want to say, I thought Miry was going to let me off the hook with this, but I'm also a member of the Miry's List community. I'm one of those people who is involved and gives. So it's not a question, are people on the ground not outraged? But I also want to say, and maybe Miry, you could speak to this because I don't have the data that you have internally from the organization, is also regionally where are the differences? So are we seeing that there are kind of pockets of care in certain areas of the country? If you look at the case of Minnesota, right, the kind of the most famous case now, where there are certain counties that did not want to resettle anybody. And so while there might be some trends going in a pessimistic direction, I join Miry and all of you in being heartened by the ground up resistance and ground up community that's happening, importantly, outside of traditional NGO and outside of traditional governmental structures, but really, mom and pop organizations that are, being run out of a living room in Northeast LA. I mean, I think it's really, really important that we talk about the different scales of how these issues manifest.
Miry, do you want to respond, Miry or Ahmed, either one of you, that to respond to kind of Josh's question about regional? Are you seeing any kind of regional differences? Ahmed, do you want to take a crack at?
Yeah, I think we need to distinguish between the politics and how the government is looking in a broad way to the immigrants or refugees. And there are a very significant sign that we have some sort of more routine vetting process has been increased. Even the number of the potential or accepted cases for the United States had been decreased significant to 18,000 this year, and we don't know. There's some sort of speculation that we can be just fine if this is going to be kept up for the upcoming year, or maybe it's decreased more. However, at the same time, I have been honored to be part of Miry's List birthday campaign, like it was 2 months ago. And I have seen majority of people who participated, they were literally racing to donate, to help. And it was just, we expressed, they have not met families in person. They have not heard from them, but we have seen a lot of personnel who are really eager to offer help. There was some quote that's really relieving, saying that if you have kids and you are starving, please don't go to the bed while you are starving unless you are saying, because I wanted to share my dinner. Literally to this point, we have seen the amount of help in the community. So the community is, I think, where we are kind of operating, and we have a lot of ton of volunteers that is really networking in the whole nation. They're really eager to help, and those I can imagine how they will be kind of pushing on their representative, whether they're, I mean, the election is coming, and we're always into this democratic process where you can call your representative. And when you're seeing any kind of regulation that is really making hard for the refugees, I think people will speak up. Like I have seen a lot of occasions that people have talked to their representative when they have seen any those laws or regulations that are affecting resettlements. So we have this kind of two sides of the story, and I think we need to look to the bright side, and I second Miry's vision. If we are staying optimistic, this will deliver that message to our families who are resettling, that they can prosper no matter what, if it's the pandemic, if it's the government, if it's the policies, if it's no matter, we are here with you. And we have launched our slogan, which is Ana Huna, means that we are here for you.
I would love to chime in with a little bit more to give the data context to everything that Ahmed just said. So I think this is so interesting. 3 out of the 5 top giving states, and that's places where people are logging onto our website and shopping our wish list, 3 of them are the ones that are most heavily impacted by fires. So Oregon, Washington State, and California are 3 of our 5 top giving states. They're also in the top resettlement states in the country. And so in regards to have we seen any kind of regionality to the support, typically the support for Miry's List are families directly through the wish list, and then also through donations directly to Miry's List are following where our families are living. So we're actually right now serving families in more than 60 cities nationally, which is like amazing. I never thought we would grow to be this big. But that kind of also kind of speaks to what the need is.
If I could add one
Yes.
quick
Go ahead.
thing on that,
of course.
just to underline is, if you look back at the history of refugee policy in the United States, one of the many interesting threads that runs throughout it over the past century is that when most refugee policies have undergone changes, particularly to open up policy more, to include new populations under the refugee assignment or classification, those changes have not come from formal political governmental pressure. Those changes have always come from grassroots organizations, local networks, advocacy networks, families joining together to say, we're here, and we are welcoming more, and we will help with the resettlement process. And we believe, and we will help share the stories so you understand the histories that so-and-so and their family are not immigrants, but are refugees, right? And that's a whole other issue we should definitely talk about. But the role of grassroots networks to change policy, this is why I think Miry's List and other organizations like it around the country and around the world are so crucial, because it's always been bottom up. And we've got to keep remembering that I'll remind myself, even amidst all of that darkness and collective grief that I know all of us are feeling, that the hope and the light continues to come, as it always had, from the bottom up.
Thank you for that. I love the way you kind of brought it back to the positive side, Josh. Thanks for that. I do have one question, which is kind of a low reframing, and then I want to go to our audience. There's a couple of questions that folks have, and I want to make sure we get to those. So we've talked about you know, whether refugees are still coming to the country. But what about their needs? Has the pandemic changed what refugee families now need? And I know Miry's list is basically a first responder on the ground on these issues. So I guess that's kind of part A of the question, right? Like, how have the needs changed in the pandemic for refugee families? And then part B, Josh, where I think I'm looking at you more for this part B, and Miry and Ahmed, I'm looking at you for part A. For part B, how does this experience, or rather, how are these kind of changes based on what Miry and Ahmed tell us, maybe, you know, what should we do in terms of rethinking how NGOs give grants to play, you know, organizations like Miry's list or directly to refugees? Should we rethink processes about funding assistance for refugee families during the pandemic? So I guess those are my two questions. So I'll pose kind of part A to you, Miry and Ahmed. How have the needs of refugee families changed during the pandemic? And then how should we think differently after that? I'll pose to Josh. So we'll start with you, Miry and Ahmed. Either one, whoever wants to go first.
I'll jump in just to talk a little bit about how Miry's list has adjusted our programming to mobilize to what the needs are for our families during COVID-19. We have seen two areas where our families have really needed support, in particular, the families who have arrived since March 2020. So area one is essential supplies, anything that a family would need to be able to quarantine safely at home. So that is everything from cleaning supplies to masks, gloves, beds, bedding. Imagine quarantining in your home without a bed. So that's the reality for a lot of our families. And then part two of our mobilization is devices for home learning. Because in 2020, access to a home computer means access to your classroom. And this is not about a question of, prior to the COVID-19 era, a laptop was often the last thing that we would provide after all of the initial needs were met. And we categorize things by priority based on how families need them: survive, hive, and thrive. Well, laptops are no longer a thrive item. Laptops equal their equity. They are access to education. And so this is particularly something that has impacted our college students, because many of them do not have access to a school district that's going to check out a device. And so we've focused on those two areas. And Ahmed is somebody who's working directly with their families. And I would love to hear how you would answer that question too.
Yeah, in addition to those essential supplies, and we have, these are not coming from our thinking that they need. We have set up our business model on solely on the feedback coming from the families themselves, and what do you need, what do you want, and all the information and data we have collected from the family, they were, part of this, the essential supplies. But I think the most important need, it was the assurance that we are all in this together, and everybody will be okay if we help each other and work together as a team to cross this struggles. These essential supplies and the word and the love, it was not only what they need for a day-to-day basis. It was that model that when anything that their kids really receive, they will of course be so grateful, so their kids can see what's the meaning of being helped, and how they deliver that message to their kids, that you are here in this community that is really helping you. So when you grow up, you need to take your part and pay it forward, so we can have this full cycle of a bright community. And we are all part of this, and our new generation will continue to help and feel the happiness of helping others. So we are not providing the essential supplies only. We are providing that assurance that we are all in this together. And this pandemic is a very great exercise, if you look at it from the bright side, that this community is so strong by its unite. It's so strong by its the willingness to help. And we will be prosperous if we work together. And if we're taken apart, no, there's no way we're going to survive. And there will be that kind of frustration feeling. So I think Mayor's List and all similar organizations are playing essential and crucial role of getting us through. And at the same time, we'll get stronger when we have this lesson learned a year from now, I'm quite sure.
I always like to look on the bright side, Ahmed, partially because I'm bathed in sunlight, as you can see. It's just great. I have not learned my lesson on how to do Zoom lighting. So maybe that's what it is. I'm blinded, you know?
It looks like a face shield of light.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. That's right. There's some statement about how I'm blinded into looking into the bright side. It's just a pun upon a pun. Josh, what about that second part of the question, especially based on what Miry and Ahmed have shared with us?
Yeah, first, it's so rare that I am the voice of pessimism on a panel. So I'm going to really dig in and own this one today.
I feel bad. I didn't want to contextualize you.
It's an honest representation of where I am right now in my life. Just to go back quickly, you had mentioned, and we had talked, kind of referred to these reductions in numbers, but I'm sure the audience knows this, but it's good to state these numbers up front, right? So that since 2004, the average number of refugees since 2004 that have been resettled has been around 60,000. This current fiscal year, I think it was mentioned already that 17,000 were permitted to resettle, or 17 or 18,000, but actually only about 9,000 have been resettled. 9,000 in the fiscal year. Trump, of course, is threatening to cut that to zero in the coming years. And so I think while it's very important, as I'll say in a second, to talk about what happens when folks are resettled, without a doubt, and increasing that support at every level. I also think it's important we don't take our eye off the ball, the fact that, there might not be any resettlement to support going forward. And so to balance those two is really, really important. And that's, again, why these kind of multi-level, multi-scale models of organizational support, NGO support, governmental support from from the top of the Office of Refugee Resettlement down to grassroots organizations is so important to have that mix. In terms of increasing support, of course, I would support that. I think that the support that does exist currently, and Miry will know more about the details of this than I do, but the support that exists in terms of housing assistance, in terms of cash assistance, in terms of ESL assistance. I don't know, I can't speak with any expertise about how effective that level of support is or has been. But I wanted to just name something quickly because we haven't talked about it before we get into the Q&A, which is one of the goals that the U.S. government says for support of new communities in the United States who've been resettled as refugees is that they should be part of a campaign of cultural integration, right? And this is a term that's not unique to the US, it's used across Europe, but it's a term that concerns me greatly about what integration means, because often integration is really code for, in my opinion, kind of very intensive assimilation into a singular model of what an American identity is. And we're seeing this again playing out right now with the current president, who, of course, has signed this executive order to create a patriotic curriculum in schools, right? One correct way of understanding American identity and American history. One of the things that I can say is true across the board is that that is not an effective model of cultural citizenship. The effective model of cultural citizenship is not cultural integration, but is actually cultural partnership or radical cultural kinship, where, and I've seen this on the ground with some of Miry's families, where I can tell one story, Miry, of a young man I met, young musician, incredible musician, Kurdish musician, and I went to hear him play music. Dilandari. And when I asked him to play some songs and we were talking about music, he started playing Kurdish songs, traditional Kurdish songs that were incredible. And then he paused. He said, I want to play one more. And I said, okay, what do you want to play? He said, this is the song that means the most to me right now. And I said, great. And he plays it and he starts singing an Ed Sheeran song. And what's important about that story to me is that that is the model of cultural connection that I think we need to support. It's not choosing one over the other. It's not saying you must only sing Kurdish songs or only sing English language pop songs. It's that there's room enough to sing both at all times, and to maintain that's what I would say on the cultural level. The more that we can support that from the top down and the bottom up, I think the more healthy and sustainable it will all be.
If it's okay, I'd like to pop in just to.
As long as you're not going to sing the Ed Sheeran song that he was talking about.
I was going to do "We Are the World," if that's okay.
Okay, there you go. All right, okay.
So I'd like to pop in with some data just to look at what has happened to the system that's available here in this country for refugees when they arrive. I look at California because we are and have been historically a top resettlement state. Between 2017 and 2019, 17 out of the 28 licensed resettlement agencies in California closed their doors because of decreased funding. And those agencies, their funding comes from the federal government, the State Department. And so we need to be aware of the fact that this is a system that has been heavily downsized since the founding of Miry's List. We were founded in 2016. That year, almost 100,000 refugees were resettled in this country. And so the reality is the resources available to refugees on the ground when they get here are dwindling. Families continue to arrive, though at a lower level than ever before in modern history since the beginning of this system, which was designed in response to refugees fleeing Hitler. We didn't have a system for them. A lot of those boats were sent back and those people were murdered. And so that was the circumstances under which this system was designed. We have seen a downsizing from the highest levels of our government. And what it results in is an environment where community-based programming for refugees is more important now than it has ever been. And that's what we are doing every single day.
Can I add one quick point to that? Because I think that also the mention of the middle of the 20th century is really important here. Because we also have to remember that a large majority of resettled refugee families are not just fleeing or displaced. They are fleeing and displaced in large part because of U.S. foreign policy. We started this conversation with a mention of the many Iraq wars. Miry can talk about the numbers here, but the amount of refugee families who are here on SIVs, on special immigrant visas, former translators for the U.S. military and the U.S. government, and to then not support those people, right, is, again, a level of callousness and, frankly, kind of cultural and political myopia that is astounding. The millions of refugees since 2001 who are here as the result of U.S. foreign policy, I think ups the ante on what I would consider the responsibility and obligation of our government to take care of families who have been displaced in part because of us.
And let me add one point here. Yes, thank you so much, Josh, for this. I am myself an SIV, and I have worked with the United States government since 2003. And I can really second what you have mentioned, that the vetting process only for our visas took almost 5 years. And it was really, so you can imagine in 5 years, you're being under real threat, and you endangered your life because you have been affiliated with the United States government in an area that is usually a kind of a combat zone. It's really a huge time. So yes, exactly. I totally agree with you.
Okay, so now I'd like to move to some of our questions, and we have several. But before I do, I will add one kind of layer of my take on this. And I view COVID as an accelerant, right? So it's accelerating pre-existing trends, and that's the kind of framework I've looked at a lot of your answers in. And just to that last point, one of the things that's happening in this country from an inequality perspective is that civil society institutions are becoming less effective at public policy, and private institutions are stepping in to do a lot of that work. Or in some cases, NGOs are, but certainly government is not stepping in to do a lot of that work. So you have Miry's List, or Facebook providing pandemic relief, Google giving out $100 million in grants. It's a very Gilded Age kind of environment that we've been entering for the last several years. Anyway, that being said, I'd like to go to our first question.
The US has settled less refugees in the last year since 1980 due to the current administration, and many countries in Europe have followed suit with right-wing nationalism. How are international NGOs adapting to COVID to ensure that their programs are accessible and meeting the needs of their beneficiaries, particularly for communities who are not being allowed into the US and are remote with limited or no internet access?
Thanks, Aubrey. I guess, Miry, is that something you would have some insight, or Ahmed, do you have some insight into the international NGO perspective, since you've done some work overseas as well?
Yeah, so from the international point of view, all the organizations have been impacted by this pandemic. We have seen, there's a reduction of fund for either the United Nations programs or even the State Department programs, while helping agencies abroad. And the issue is that the mainstream line right now for the government is to focus on the internal, economics, and focus all the resources to the inside of the United States, rather than helping the abroad agencies. So yes, it was a direct impact for the international agencies program, whether it's a humanitarian, whether it's an economic development, or a society or capacity building. And then that was the kind of the graduate policy that we have seen, that an increased number of reduction of these programs till the virus hits. And then there was also another big hit to budget cut for many programs. We hope that this is going to be over anytime soon, and everything back to normalcy soon.
If I could add one quick thing there, I think it's also, I think, underlines the importance for countries like the United States, wealthy nations, to continue supporting international global refugee efforts. I think the number is something like 80% of the world's refugees are not hosted by wealthy countries, but are hosted by developing countries, Pakistan, Turkey, and Uganda. And I would probably add Lebanon in there in a larger time frame. And that's not to mention internal displacements, where refugees are displaced within their own countries. That without the support of wealthy nations, the increased pressure on global NGOs, global community organizations intensifies. And you're talking about economic systems that are simply not set up to support that level of humanitarian aid. And historically, that has been one of the roles that the U.S. has played, on and off with ebbs and flows, but overall as a supporter of international aid. And so I just think, I don't have the numbers there, but I do think that it puts an extra layer of urgency and responsibility on the support that the U.S. should be playing.
All right, so Natalia Smith would like to know, can you talk about some of the long-term impacts, or rather, let me read the entire question. The IRC released a report in April that discussed the secondary impacts COVID-19 causes to states that already have fragile humanitarian, economic, security, and political environments. Can you talk about some of these long-term impacts beyond immediate service delivery and health provisions you expect to impact refugees who have not yet been resettled in the United States? So that, I guess, it's prior to the work, prior to your work beginning, Miry or Ahmed. I don't know, Josh, if you have some insight.
I don't know if I have any insight other than I agree. I think if I'm understanding the question, I'm agreeing very much with the underlying proposition of the question. If we're looking at a world with roughly 80 million people displaced, be they asylum seekers, forced migrants, or refugees, or many other categories, but 80 million people. Part of the risk there is, although the economic risks, the health risks, all of the things that the question already laid out. And then there's the even bigger question and the bigger risk, which is a world of stateless people, a world of people who do not have access to formal structures of rights, of not being able to claim human rights, to claim civil rights, because they are locked out of the political structures and political systems that guarantee rights, whether we agree with those systems or not. But I think that is of great concern, of a growing population, of a global population of rightsless, stateless people that are going to have, that I think is going to have kind of significant impacts on the very notion of global solidarity and global humanity.
I just have an anecdote and something more anecdotal to add, but the team that's working at Miry's List, the vast majority of those are folks like Ahmed who have experienced resettlement here in this country themselves and have since graduated from our program. And my colleague Rabia, who oversees family services for all of our families who speak Farsi, Pashto, Dari, and a few other languages, who are coming from Afghanistan or Iran. She told me that a friend of her, she had posted something on about Miry's List on her Facebook account, and a friend of hers who's in Afghanistan sent her a message, and he said, "Hey, how have you ever heard of Miry's List?" And she said, "How have you ever heard of Miry's List?" And she says, "I work there. I work with Miry." And he said, "Oh my gosh, so many people around here are talking about Miry's List and actually requesting." There's on the application for refugee resettlement, requesting California because of the work that they've heard that we're doing with the families here. And so I love this story because, first of all, it's like the ultimate Yelp review. Like if you hear that somebody all across the world, I can't even believe that they're listening to what a small organization like us are doing here in California. But I think that it speaks to, we're at a unique point in time where we are connected pretty much. People have access to information like we've never had before. And so we can attack challenges that we have faced for all of time with this new set of tools. And I just wanted to add that in. And thank you if that person in Afghanistan is watching and you are awaiting resettlement in the United States or elsewhere. We're here for you. We're waiting for you. And Ahmed's gonna pick up the phone when you call.
My pleasure. And to add to the kind of long-term kind of impact, I think one of the aspects that everybody here in the refugee community is really concerned about is the processing time for either the asylum seekers or the refugees that they are coming from abroad. We have seen, any simple process that was maybe before the pandemic take maybe 14 days or a month. Right now, it's really almost double to 3 or to 2 or 3. And this is going to really impact the overall pipeline cases. And these are going to be on the long run, going to impact everything. Either it's they seek their status for being eligible to work, if they're granted the asylum, or if they're applying for benefits, or they're applying for a citizenship. Everything in the pipeline will be pushed back, and not only pushed back by weeks or months, it's going to be significantly delayed. And this is going to really provide some sort of anxiety and frustration on all of the refugee community, which is really going to be on the long run. We need to really host another event to talk about. It's really going to be important.
It's a comment, but also it's a question to Josh. You mentioned the 80% of international refugees hosted by developing versus wealthy countries, which is a staggering percentage. Do you have an idea where you got that one from?
Yes, I got those numbers, I believe, from the UNHCR website, which lists all the demographics and all the numbers of refugee resettlement.
Right, like I'm not doubting it because on an intuitive basis, just because I've worked with the Zaatari camps in Jordan, so Jordan also should be on
Jordan,
the list.
absolutely, absolutely.
Jordan and Lebanon.
Yes, well, as you know, the refugee conversation is so complicated on so many different levels. And one of the key places it's complicated is where do the millions of Palestinians fit into the global conception of a refugee? And so that camp, particularly the impact on Jordan, the impact in Lebanon of Palestinian refugees since 1948 is always bracketed as a separate conversation. And it's actually literally bracketed on the UNHCR site. Those numbers are part of, but separate. So I think it's a really important point.
Thank you, because this is great for us. The students, PRICE students, are now in this class interviewing, like there are 40 students now, they're out there interviewing local development NGOs, Southern California based, and it'll be nice if we can add Miry's list on our list of, so that would be great if you can leave us a contact information in the chat box for the students to take note of. That would be great. We're trying to connect our PRICE students with you guys. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have another question here, I think from Facebook. I'm going to read it. Remote education is a hurdle for new arrival children who otherwise might be acclimating to the US, improving English language skills, and making friends from the wider community at school. What are things that can help until schools can safely open again? So I guess Miry and Ahmed, that goes to you in particular.
I would love to just give some examples of how some of the students who are in the Miry's List community have been able to stay connected and to stay helpful to the resettling students who are in our program. Polytechnic High School in Pasadena has been one of the schools who has been specifically focused on the mission of Miry's List. They even made our program Welcome Neighbor their theme for the curriculum last year, and that's how heavily influenced and involved the school was with Miry's List. This year, the students who were focusing on the engagement with Miry's List, and all of these students had to suddenly start school from home as well. They decided that the thing that they could do that would be most useful was to apply for a grant from their school to donate money for laptops for resettling students who do not have access to their classrooms from home. Now, it's pretty common that families are at home with 4, 5, or more children. These are families who have arrived here in the last 2 years as refugees. And so maybe they are sharing devices. A lot of those devices are checked out. A lot of those devices were given to them secondhand. And we all know how difficult it is to just stay engaged to a classroom. And so these are real barriers to entry to continuing the education for some of these students. And then the other thing I want to add is just to how important this type of direct action is. Resettling students don't necessarily have a adult who is in the household who speaks English better than they do. And Ahmed has beautiful English, and I've been impressed with your English since the day we met, Ahmed. And your kids are so lucky to have somebody who can help them with their homework at a very deep level. But not all of our families have access to that. And so we have a unique role of the older siblings kind of helping the younger siblings and almost taking the lead as the education development leaders in the household right now. And so I love that example of how the Polytechnic students just kind of gathered their community together to make these funds available to Miry's List specifically for the purpose of getting those students laptops.
Yeah, from a parent perspective, I think when first we got the county order for staying at home, and all the schools are to close. It was really challenging for me to explain to the kids that you are staying at home, you'll be doing this model of learning. And we all know distant learning is not as effective as in person. But first I had to explain what's the pandemic. And as a kid, although they are so smart and they're very open to accept very new ideas, it was really challenging for me to explain what's the meaning of virus, how it's kind of affecting our health. And they started to do their research, and they came up with a full agreement that, okay, we're staying at home, and we will be doing distance learning. However, in the same time, our community is not all united about the virus, aggressive. I mean, some people or some part of our community is not really committed to the social distancing or, committed to the virus, recognition. So they have seen another examples. It's really unlike what we have explained as parents. Some people are going and living their lives kind of normally. And then we are in that challenge on how we can balance that. We are asking our kids to stay away from their friends and stay at home, but at the same time, some other people are really living their lives like normally. So that's, what are the things that can help until school can safely open again? It's really, we need to be getting united about how we are going to tackle doing our part as community, and what's the message that we are delivering to our kids. If we're asking to stay at home, then we will need to be representative to this request.
Can I chime in real quick? I wanted to maybe, because I don't think you've talked about it, Miry, maybe I missed it at the beginning, but for people who are watching, who are compelled by this conversation to take action on very, very small local levels. Miry, could you explain the kind of gift page of the way that people can just go on Amazon and if a family needs a laptop, or if a family needs X, Y, or Z, just how easy it is to help them out?
Yeah, so the one of our 4 programs, our flagship program, is called Wishlist by Miry's List, and it's the list in Miry's List. And essentially what we've done is we've made our website a platform where anybody can send a gift directly to the door of a resettling family. And so if you have ever been new somewhere, you can surely remember a person or people who made you feel welcome. And that is what our website has created the mechanism for between American people and our resettling neighbors. And so I encourage anybody who's interested in getting involved, that's a perfect place to get started. Well, first of all, this conversation and listening in and these amazing questions is a great place to continue learning. And then a next step could be to go onto miryslist.org, click on See the Lists. You'll start seeing family photos. We include bios, photos. Some families ask to be anonymous, and we always respect their right to that. That's why maybe some families won't have photos. And you click through, you go right to an Amazon wish list. Amazon keeps the address private while allowing people to send gifts that go directly to their door. These things do not come to Miry's List, and you can write a gift message. And I highly recommend you please do that. Our families, they open the door and they see these boxes. And Ahmed spoke to this earlier in our conversation about what is the value kind of beyond the price tag of the thing inside the box. And one of the ways that value can really be communicated in a strong and memorable way is through the gift message that is written. And it's so simple. It can be 3 words or it can be 5 paragraphs. Well, I think there's a character limit. However, our families read those and they also hang on to them. And so I encourage you to do that. You can get involved directly with families. Also, if you sign up for the newsletter on our website, we will send you 5 lists every 2 weeks. It's called Hive Around 5 to make it even easier to be reminded that this is something that we can do 24/7.
Great. So we have time for one more question, which is a question for Josh. And this comes from... pardon me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but it looks like it comes from Nalaba Ruiz. She is with Catholic Relief Services, CRS, and she would like to ask Josh, how has U.S. foreign policy affected refugee families? Specifically, how could advocacy play a role in the United States to help refugees, not only from Middle Eastern countries, but especially from Latin America?
Sure. I don't know how it happened that the culture guy is the policy guy. I guess I put myself in that position. I think it's a great question. I think if I had if I had good answers to that question, I probably wouldn't be the culture guy. But I think the bringing up Latin America, and I would say specifically Central America here, is crucial, because this is another key region where you see mass displacement as the direct result of US foreign policy. And I do think that within the kind of, I mean, this is the thing about the refugee category, right? Is that anyone who studies this and who watches it over time, you arrive at a very uncomfortable realization, which is that the very category of refugee itself is one of hierarchy, and one that is fairly arbitrarily assigned. Refugees are selected by the US government in the official language. So who is selected and why changes over time. It's changed since the end of World War II. It's changed during the Cold War. It changed after the Cold War. It was different for the Cubans as it was for the Haitians. Who's a refugee today? It might not be a refugee tomorrow. And so all of these support mechanisms that we're talking about here, can just go away. And that is what's happened across the board, I would say, in the case of Central Americans who are fleeing violence, who are fleeing fragile states, who are fleeing climate disaster and climate crisis. We haven't even talked about climate refugees. And women who are fleeing sexual violence. We also have not talked about probably the most unspoken about category, I would say, in global refugee policy, which is sexual violence and gender-based violence. And then people being deported literally back to their deaths, right? And in the case of Central America, I think we have a long way to go in the United States right now. I mean, like a long way, like we're at the bottom of just changing the national narrative and the national discourse about the US's relationship to Central America. If you look at detention centers, as I mentioned, across the United States, disproportionate numbers of Central American families, unaccompanied Central American children, of course, which we know from the headlines, these things haven't gone away. And though I do think we need a change of culture, we need a change in the political climate to properly address and reclassify Central Americans as political refugees who cannot return and should not be allowed to return. And unfortunately, not only are they being held up in the asylum system once declaring asylum at the US-Mexico border, they're no longer even in the system, because the bureaucratic and administrative border that allows people to enter the asylum system is closed. And asylum has been thoroughly criminalized. And so people who try to even declare asylum are sent back or not even let into the US as they used to be able to do before they can actually be recognized as seeking asylum. So I think, in part two of this conversation, there's the asylum subject, which is linked but very different. And I couldn't agree more. I wish I had a better answer about how to directly handle this on the Central American front, but I would welcome those out there who have suggestions or advice. I would love to hear from it, either now or later.
Okay, I think this has been a fantastic panel. I will add, Josh, on that side, I'm going to take my moderator hat off for the last minute and a half and just say a very simplistic answer to this question, to the latter half of it, in terms of what are the levers of power to implement policy change. This doesn't just apply to refugees. It's pretty simplistic, and it applies to all kinds of policy change, right? So my favorite three levers of power are litigation, number one, right? So like it or not, litigation has power in this country. We're a litigious country. We litigate. And when you litigate and you have a case, I'm a lawyer, so I'm biased, nobody's perfect. But when when a case is decided, it creates precedent. So that creates momentum to fight against. Sometimes it's good momentum, like same-sex marriage, for instance. Now it's fairly hard to overturn that. Sometimes it's bad momentum, like Plessy v. Ferguson, but you can leverage that power for your own goods, for your own means. Second is press, right? Especially not just press in the traditional sense, but press in the social media sense, right? If you can harness a group of people all you need is 1,000 people, really. And you can harness these group of people to leverage your message, whether it's assisting refugees or some other public policy goal that you have. That's very helpful, right? And the third is elections, like voting. And there's problems in all of these systems, right? I'm not saying they're perfect systems, but there are levers of power which you can work on. So voting, donating to candidates, helping to get candidates elected, these things work, right? Lots of other stuff works too, like protests have a place in public policy reform. For instance, protests make sure that the issue you're talking about can't be ignored. That is the primary value of protests. They make it very difficult for an issue to be ignored. But these are kind of lasting, more nerdy ways of getting public policy reform. If you're interested about these issues, I'm also going to share my email address and my website. I have a newsletter and a podcast you can sign up for as well. Thank you so much to all of you, to Miry, to Ahmed, to Josh, for joining us this afternoon, to Aubrey for helping to put this forward and organizing it, to Anne Johnson as well from the Bedrosian Center for helping to organize this as well. And with that, Aubrey, I'll sign off unless you want to add anything.
I just want to thank you all. It was a really great conversation. Thank you.